Hello again, those of you who enjoy learning about the past, and welcome to another exciting adventure through time. We are going to delve into one of the most fascinating periods in ancient history today, which is the Roman conquest of Britannia and the subsequent struggle that the Celts put up against them. Get ready to witness the collision of empires as well as the tenacious spirit of the Celtic tribes as they fight for their independence. In the year 43 AD, the powerful Roman Empire, which was governed at the time by Emperor Claudius, set its sights on the uncharted and mysterious island of Britannia. The Romans had already extended their control over much of Europe, but Britannia presented a special challenge because of the numerous Celtic tribes and the ferocious warriors that lived there. The Celtic people who lived in Britannia had a culture that was deep-seated in their spiritual beliefs, creative expression, and tribal warfare. This gave rise to a civilization that was rich and lively. These fearless warriors had for a long time guarded their territory against foreign threats, and they had no intention of giving up without a fight when they were confronted by the Romans. The Celts were a group of indigenous peoples that occupied huge areas of Europe, such as the areas that are now known as Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Cornwall, Gaul, which is now known as France, and parts of Spain and Germany. They came together to establish an intricate web of tribal societies, each with its own traditions, dialects, and distinct identities. Celtic society was characterized in large part by its emphasis on warfare, and its warriors earned a stellar reputation across the ancient world for their prowess in battle. Celtic warriors were infamous for their viciousness and were renowned to fight using unique weapons such as long swords, spears, and shields decorated with elaborate patterns. The Celtic peoples lived in well-organized settlements, frequently located in hill forts and ring forts that were well defended due to their strategic placement. These communities, which were protected by ditches and wooden palisades, acted as hubs for a variety of social, economic, and cultural pursuits during that time period. The Celtic people had a long history of artistic achievement, which they demonstrated through ornate metalwork, exquisite jewelry, and colorful patterns. The elaborate knotwork, spirals, and animal designs that graced their artifacts are evidence of the skilled craftsmanship and creative sensitivities of the people who created them. The Celts placed a significant emphasis on their religious practices. The role of the Druids, who were the spiritual leaders of the time, was to act as mediators between the mortal world and the divine realm. They presided over sacred rites, practiced divination, and kept the oral tradition alive, ensuring that the knowledge and tales of the Celts were passed down from generation to generation. Celtic holidays, such as Beltane and Samhain, were celebrations of the natural cycles that signaled the change of the seasons. These lively and communal gatherings included singing, dancing, eating, and holy ceremonies, all of which served to strengthen the relationships that existed within the tribe. Celtic society was built on a foundation of agriculture, with farming and herding playing essential roles in daily life. They also raised livestock, such as cattle, sheep, and pigs, in addition to cultivating crops like wheat, barley, and oats. Their spiritual beliefs were intricately interwoven with the land and all that it provided for them. The Celts were excellent merchants, who established wide networks and engaged in trade with nearby tribes as well as distant regions. They engaged in trade, exchanging items like salt, tin, amber, and textiles. This promoted cultural interaction and contributed to economic growth. The Celtic peoples were known for their ferocious defense of their homelands against any outside aggressors, especially the powerful Roman Empire. They displayed resiliency and bravery in the face of Roman occupation, frequently engaged in ferocious resistance actions that would leave an indelible mark on the annals of history. Even though the Roman Empire eventually conquered much of Celtic Europe, the culture and customs of the many Celtic tribes have managed to survive to this day. There is a continuing connection to their rich ancestry that may be made through the preservation of Celtic influences in contemporary art, music, language, and cultural practices. The Iceni, who were commanded by the fierce Queen Boudica, were recognized as one of the most influential Celtic tribes. The Iceni put up a ferocious fight against Roman power, which resulted in a dramatic and bloody struggle that shattered the foundations of Britannia. The determination of Queen Boudica to defend the independence of her people and preserve their cultural heritage from Roman rule was the driving force for their uprising. Within the context of the Roman invasion of Britannia, one name stands out as a symbol of resistance and defiance: Queen Boudica. The rebellion spread like wildfire, and for a brief while the Romans faced a formidable threat. Dive in with me as we explore the amazing life of this Celtic warrior queen who stood up to the power of the Roman Empire. Boudica was a powerful member of the Iceni tribe, who was a powerful Celtic people who resided in what is now modern-day East Anglia, England. Boudica was born in the early 1st century AD. She came from a long history of powerful leaders and was able to pass on the indomitable spirit of her people to her children. The rise to popularity of Boudica coincided with a period of upheaval for the Celtic tribes that lived in Britannia. As a result of the Roman Empire's growing territorial holdings, tensions between the Romans and the many indigenous peoples in the area rapidly increased. When the Romans conquered Britannia in the year 43 AD, Boudica's husband, King Prasutagus, forged a tenuous alliance with the Romans in order to safeguard their territory and retain some level of autonomy. However, after Prasutagus' death, the Romans went back on their word and invaded Iceni land, taking it over completely. Boudica was able to rise to the position of formidable leader of a rebellion against the rule of the Romans because she was driven by a profound sense of injustice and of the need to defend her people. She galvanized the Celtic tribes of Britannia into a unified front of resistance against their captors by employing fiery language and charismatic leadership. The Celtic forces, led by Boudica, launched a series of devastating attacks on Roman colonies while she was in power. They reduced cities like Camulodunum, present-day Colchester, Londinium, London, and Verulamium, St. Albans, to ruins as a result of these assaults. The Romans were taken aback by the viciousness of the rebellion, and they had a difficult time trying to put a stop to it. The uprising that was headed by Queen Boudica was more than just a military operation. Rather, it was a fervent quest for freedom and vengeance. The soldiers headed by Boudica engaged the Romans in bloody conflicts, adopting guerrilla strategies that capitalized on their intimate familiarity with the topography of the area. Queen Boudica would frequently lead by example for her men by charging into combat atop a chariot. She was known for her unflinching bravery and unyielding will. Her participation in the battle further cemented her position as a symbol of defiance against the tyranny of the Romans. The Romans, who were known for their military might, rapidly became aware of the necessity of subduing Britannia and bringing it under their authority. They did this by launching a series of military expeditions led by the seasoned commander Gaius Suetonius Paulinus in order to put an end to the Celtic people's resistance. In spite of the early setbacks they suffered, the Roman legions were eventually able to get the upper hand. They defeated the Celtic warriors in open combat by employing stronger strategies, more advanced weaponry, and more disciplined formations. However, the resistance was in no way finished. Even though Boudica's uprising was ultimately crushed, her legacy will live on as an icon of Celtic defiance for many years to come. Her name is engraved in history as a tribute to the dogged determination of individuals who had the audacity to resist the power of the Roman Empire. Today, throughout the entirety of Britannia, you may see statues and monuments that have been erected in honor of Queen Boudica. These structures serve as reminders of both her valor and the continuing Celtic culture. Her life serves as an example to many generations around the world to never give up in the face of tyranny. Hadrian's Wall, one of the most well-known sites in Britannia, was built by the Romans with the dual purpose of reinforcing their control and defending their boundaries. This magnificent achievement in engineering spanned across 73 miles and served as a border marker for the Roman Empire's northern territory. In addition to its function as a physical barrier, Hadrian's Wall was also important to the Romans as a symbol of their power and authority. It served as a continual reminder to the Celtic tribes of their servitude, while also providing the Romans with control over trade, mobility, and defense. The Romans constructed a network of forts, towns, and roadways within the boundaries of this large wall, which enhanced their rule and cultural influence. The Romans and the Britons' engagement in cultural exchange had a significant and lasting effect on each of their respective communities. The Romans were pioneers in a number of new technological areas, including urban planning, efficient agriculture, and sophisticated infrastructure. They brought with them Latin, which eventually mixed with the indigenous Celtic languages to form an ancestor of contemporary English through a process known as Anglicization. Additionally, Roman habits, clothing, and even religious practices were absorbed by the Britons. Romanization came to be used more and more frequently, particularly among the more affluent people of Britain. The Roman way of life was showcased through the construction of magnificent villas, bathhouses, and theaters. In turn, the Britons contributed their own distinctive flavor by fusing the aesthetics of their creative traditions with those of Roman culture. It is essential to keep in mind that not all Britons gladly embraced the culture of the Romans. A great number of Celtic tribes steadfastly adhered to their customs and found creative ways to adapt without becoming completely assimilated. Despite the impact of the Romans, Britain maintained its independent spirit and rich cultural diversity. Britannia remained a land with distinct tribal identities and continued resistance against Roman domination, even as the Roman Empire extended throughout the continent. The cultural exchange was not a one-sided affair, but rather a complicated process that involved negotiating and adapting to new circumstances. We appreciate you watching. If you want to stay informed about our most current episodes, make sure to give them a like, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell. Also, if you have any suggestions for subjects that might be discussed in the future, please put them in the comments box below so that they can be considered. Always be open to new experiences and don't let go of your childlike sense of wonder until we meet again.